Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to JPC Spiritual Talk. It's Jared Campbell. So tonight, we're going to talk about NATO bypasses a possible Trump election. We're going to talk about Poland, Israel, Russia, Turkey, Ukraine, and we're going to talk about Bolivia as well. Without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it. Get the screen shared over. Thank you all again for following. We'll get right to work. All right. So the first article on the screen, we're going to talk about NATO bypasses a possible Trump election. This one's very interesting. So here we go. So up on the screen. So NATO bypassed a possible election of Trump in the USA. In 3 months, the invasion of NATO forces in Ukraine began. Plan of lightning advance. NATO asked Israel for all Patriot systems. It's big stuff. So this is breaking, right? So this kind of goes along with what the Serbian president was saying. I did a video on the Serbian president a while back, and he was saying 3 to 4 months, right? 3 to 4 months, there'll be World War III. So here, this article did a really good job of presenting a detailed and proactive narrative regarding NATO's strategic maneuvers in Ukraine, suggesting a significant military escalation and political implications. So here's some of my takeaway. NATO's military preparations. With a sense of urgency, NATO is reportedly planning a substantial deployment of forces in Ukraine, set to commence around late September or early October. This includes integrating various military assets such as F-16s, airborne warning and control systems. They're like modified Boeing 707 aircrafts, and air defense systems to establish a robust anti-aircraft shield for NATO forces entering Ukraine. 2, the request for Patriot systems. NATO has requested multiple of those Patriot systems for Israel, indicating a high level of preparation for anticipated conflict. Next, the creation of the NSATU. The article highlighted establishing the NATO Security Assistance and Training for Ukraine. NSATU mission, which will be based in Wiesbaden, Germany. The mission aims to coordinate military assistance training for Ukraine forces, showcasing NATO's long-term commitment to supporting Ukraine. Political dimensions. The article also discussed NATO's efforts to ensure that a potential Trump re-election does not hinder its plans. It suggests that NATO's current strategies are designed to bypass any changes in U.S. foreign policy that might arise from a Trump presidency. Interesting. International support. Numerous European countries, along with the U.S., have signed security agreements with Ukraine, pledging continuous military and economic support. This collective effort underscores a broad international commitment to Ukraine amidst its ongoing conflict with Russia. Okay. So, training and exercises. Ukrainian naval assets participation in NATO exercises, such as Sea Breeze 2024, indicates a strengthening of operation capabilities and integration with NATO forces. Some of the goals. The Estonian Prime Minister and other NATO officials are clear about their goals, emphasizing the need for a clear victory in the Ukrainian conflict. This reflects a more aggressive stance within the alliance. In summary, the article portrays an intimate and comprehensive NATO military intervention in Ukraine, coupled with extensive international support and a strategic focus on ensuring these plans remain unaffected by potential political changes in the U.S. However, it is essential to approach such claims cautiously and seek further verification from device sources to gain a complete and balanced understanding of the situation, right? All right, so let's listen to this.
The price we pay in supporting Ukraine in its efforts to defeat Russian imperialism is little compared to what would follow if aggression pays off. And we have to set victory as a goal. As historian Timothy Snyder has said, you don't always win wars, but you never win them if you don't set victory as a goal.
All right, so moving right along. So the die has been cast. Poland drafts 18 to 35-year-olds into the army. NATO creates new 700-kilometer Mazino Line and establishes a Schengen Military Zone. Schengen Military Zone. The Russians talk about a secret mobilization of Poland, Romania's role in NATO attack. Beautiful. All right, so the article here, it outlines significant military and strategic developments in Poland and NATO's broader regional preparations in response to perceived threats from Russia. Poland's military mobilization. According to Russia's military sources, okay? So according to Russian military sources, Poland has begun a secret mobilization effort to increase its military reserves by at least 120,000 to potentially 200,000 personnel. This initiative includes a summer program called Holidays with the Army. Polish citizens aged 1835 can receive 28 days of basic military training. There also will be incentives for the recruits. Participants in the Holidays with the Army program are offered a stipend of 6,000, which would be over 1,400 euros, right, for their service. The program is designed to bolster Poland's reserve forces and offer recruits the option to continue serving in the national defense after completing the training. Now they're getting them ready for World War III, right? I wonder how good those incentives really are, right? So, strategic locations and preparations. Training is conducted in 70 locations across Poland, including areas near the borders of Russia and Belarus. This highlights Poland's strategic focus on strengthening its defenses and regions most vulnerable to potential conflicts. NATO's regional strategy. NATO's regional strategy. NATO is reportedly creating a new 700-kilometer Mazino Line, establishing a Schengen military zone, enhancing military coordination and rapid deployment capabilities within the alliance. This reflects a broader strategy for fortified NATO's eastern flank against potential aggression from Russia. Concerns over troop availability. The article also referenced concerns highlighted by the Financial Times about the shortage of military personnel in European NATO countries. Despite a nominal total of 1.9 million military personnel, analysts suggest that NATO could only realistically deploy 300,000 troops in the event of a conflict with Russia. Numbers are not seeming to add up. Although the article does not detail Romania's specific actions, it suggests that Romania, like Poland, is playing a significant role in NATO's overall strategy to counter Russian threats. The article also improvised Poland's efforts to enhance military readiness through increased mobilization and training programs, supported by broader NATO strategies to fortify defenses along its eastern borders. This narrative underscores the heightened state of alert and preparedness within NATO in response to perceived threats from Russia. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. So this was look at this right here. If I zoom in a little bit, so this is how U.S. troops could be sent to front line in European ground war with Russia. So you see the NATO numbers and Russian allies. So here it has 5 points, right? Point 1 is Netherlands, Germany, Poland. It's one starting point, right? Then number 2, Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, and Hungary. That's point 2. Then point 3, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania. Then point 4, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania. But Turkey's acting a little funny right now. And then number 5, Norway, Sweden, Finland. All right. All right. So let's move right along. All right, Israel. All right, so Israel's next. So Israel will attack Iran. State-of-the-art Israeli missile passed Crete and fell off Malta, says the Russians. Our decision will affect the entire Middle East. Iran will have 5 atomic bombs in a month. Woo. All right, so this article reports on heightened tensions in the Middle East, centering on Israel's potential preemptive strike against Iran due to its advancing nuclear program. So here are some of my key points. Number one, Israel's missile test. According to Russian sources, Israel conducted a test of a medium-range ballistic missile, which flew over Crete and fell to the sea near Malta, simulating a potential strike on Iran. The missile's range is about 1,800 kilometers. It's significant enough to reach Tehran. Iran's nuclear investments. Iran is reportedly accelerating its nuclear program, potentially having the capacity to produce 5 atomic bombs within a month. This rapid development has heightened Israel's urgency to act. Military preparations. Israel is conducting long-range strike exercises and has created an Iranian sector of operation amid fears that Iran might exploit current regional conflicts to advance its nuclear ambitions unnoticed. Diplomatic efforts in U.S. involvement. Israel is pushing for U.S. support against Iran while engaging in diplomatic talks to prepare for every possible scenario. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin improvised diplomacy to avoid escalating into a regional war. Potential regional impact. Israel's foreign minister highlighted that any decision regarding Iran would significantly impact the entire Middle East. Plans for a possible attack on Lebanon have been approved amid ongoing clashes with Hezbollah. Preparations for conflict. Israel is also preparing for potential wartime scenarios, including setting up emergency food supplies and exploring options for internet provision through Starlink in case of infrastructure damage. In summary, highlighting the escalating threat posed by Iran's nuclear advancements and Israel's preparations for possible preemptive strike, underscoring the potential for significant regional conflict and the importance of diplomatic efforts to mitigate any further escalations. All right. Here we go. Russia. So moving right along. So severing diplomatic relations. Russia diplomats to withdraw from U.S. EU. Kremlin assassination plot revealed. NATO's 7-point plan to destabilize Russia. I've talked about this before. They want to break up Russia in I think in 5 parts, right? I did a video on that a while back. So here we go. So we have this article that's highlighting escalating tensions between Russia and the West, focusing on significant diplomatic and military developments. Here are my key points, right? Withdrawal of Russian diplomats. Okay, so this article was talking about the Kremlin has announced a gradual withdrawal of Russian diplomats from the U.S. and certain EU countries due to deteriorating relations. This move is expected to lead to a complete severance of diplomatic ties and the closure of Russian diplomatic missions in the regions. Number 2, accusations against the West. So Russia cites continued hostile actions by the U.S., including arms procurement, acts of terrorism, intelligence collection, and destabilization plans as reasons for the diplomatic downgrades. Even the Russian deputy foreign minister improvised a challenging environment for Russian embassies in Western countries. Reassessment nuclear doctrine. Russia is reconsidering its nuclear doctrine in response to changing international conditions. This reassessment signals to the West how serious Russia's stance is on national security interests, warning against dangerous provocations and illusions about nuclear conflict. Potential NATO destabilization plan. British media. So British media report that former Russian politicians in exile are preparing a plan to destabilize Russia, including the assassination of government officials, which they intend to present at the upcoming NATO summit. This plan also involves increased support for Ukraine and additional sanctions against Russia. Concerns over arms production. Despite Western sanctions, Russia has significantly increased its production of military equipment, including missiles and artillery. Reports suggest that NATO might need to consider alternative strategies, as sanctions have not effectively disrupted Russian arms production. regional impact and escalation risks. Russia also warned that Western actions could provoke uncontrolled escalation, including nuclear conflict. Russia also stressed it's prepared to defend its security and national interests firmly. The article did a great job underscoring the deepening crisis between Russia and the West, marked by diplomatic withdrawals, potential changes in nuclear policy, and the allegations of destabilization plans. These developments point to a highly volatile situation with significant risk of escalation and broader regional impacts. Beautiful. I'm sorry, hold on one second.
The Russian defense minister has warned his American counterpart that U.S. arms supplies to Kiev risk further escalation. The two held a phone call on Tuesday, which Washington is said to have initiated. The conversation comes as Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said there is a growing risk of a direct armed conflict between the two nuclear powers.
At the Primakov Readings Forum, we have come to the conclusion that today there is a risk of a direct armed conflict, including from nuclear powers. We have come to the conclusion that there are questions regarding how the classical concept of nuclear deterrence works. We also concluded that we need to think about what's next and how to minimize the risk of a direct confrontation. Professional conversations on this topic must be continued through the official line. Our opponents are putting forward obviously unacceptable conditions for such a dialogue. That is, they propose, in fact, to get away from the entire hostile policy that NATO, led by the United States, is pursuing towards Russia and return to dialogue in line with patterns on those platforms and in those formats, as it happened before the beginning of the current phase of the most acute crisis in relations between Russia and the collective West. This is impossible. I think that both political science circles and officials in the West do still, in their heart of hearts, understand the questions being raised and the impossibility for us to sacrifice fundamental security interests just to avoid an acute conflict with the West.
Correct. So moving right along now. So now, declaration of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Defense of Turkey. We are ready for the Third World War. With Russia or NATO, will the confidential neutral be drafted? Third official statement from Orban. And all right. So the recent declaration by Turkey's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense underscores the country's readiness for potential global conflict, signaling significant geopolitical implications. So readiness for World War III. So Turkey has announced, right? So Turkey has announced its preparedness for World War III, though it remains unclear whether it would align with NATO or even Russia at this point. Like I said earlier, they're acting kind of funny. The Turkish Ministry of Defense emphasized that the Turkish Armed Forces, TAF, are equipped and ready for various scenarios, defense and security plans. The Turkish Defense Ministry highlighted that the TAF continuously updates its defense and security plans based on current assessment. Turkey's military is dynamic, conducting operations globally and assuring logistics and plans are tested and approved. Statements by Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan emphasized the seriousness of the potential for regional and global war. He criticized the international community, mainly European states and the U.S. for their support of Israel's actions in Gaza, suggesting these actions contribute to global instability. The The Turkish government stance regarding its potential alliances in a global conflict remains ambiguous. The announcement hints at possible negotiations with Russia and NATO, indicating that Turkey might decide its stance based on future developments or even exchanges. Operations in Iraq. Regarding operations in Iraq, the Turkish Defense Ministry declared that local Iraqis, not Turkish forces, manage checkpoints and residential areas. Discussions with Iraq about establishing a joint operations center are ongoing and progressing positively. Ongoing fight against the FETO. The Turkish armed forces continue their efforts against FETO movement with ongoing operations based on new evidence and intelligence. The fight against FETO remains a priority due to a significant impact on Turkish institutions. Turkey's announcement of readiness for World War III and its strategic ambiguity regarding potential alliances marks a critical point in international relations. The country's dynamic military preparations and ongoing regional operations reflects a significant role and influence in the current geopolitical landscape. So here's the Turkish forces are preparing for an excursion into Iraq. All right. So moving right along. Now, let's talk about Ukraine. So preparations to intensify the attacks right there on the place on your screen, those places. Talking about the P-79 highway, how it's key to recapture of Uzium. The situation on the Ukrainian fronts, right? So the situation on the Ukrainian front still remains volatile, with significant developments occurring across multiple regions, right? So here's some of my takeaways. So a static front in Kharkiv. Despite Ukrainian counterattacks, the Russian front in Kharkiv remains relatively unchanged. Ukrainian forces are making efforts to push back areas or making efforts to push back. Let's see on this screen. I have a hard time pronouncing some of these. So let's see if we can find a map. There's a map on here. Yeah, but it's not translated. So I don't want to mess up these names because I really don't know how to pronounce a lot of these names. So here we go. So they click on the linked articles, right? So the Ukrainian forces are making efforts to push back in certain areas, but their progress is still limited. Reports indicate that Russian forces have captured, I can find it in the article. Right here. Zoom in. The Russians have captured right there. So that's what the Russians have captured. Sorry, I have a hard time pronouncing those words. So the Russians captured a factory right here, right? And are stockpiling supplies, right? With Russians attacking in small, well-supported groups, this tactic shifts a mark of departure from traditional Soviet-era mass army strategies. Intensify attacks in Donetsk. Western experts in the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, note increase Russian activity in Donetsk, aimed at depleting Ukrainian reserves. The Russians are achieving tactical successes by maintaining a high rate of attacks. Other analysts predict that Russian forces will intensify their attacks The strategy aims to exploit the current Ukrainian forces on defending Kharkiv, preventing them from relocating their best forces back to these fronts. Since June 22nd, the Russians have reassumed heavy bombing of Kharkiv, including using an FAB-3000 bombs, big bombs. These efforts are part of a broader strategy to keep Ukrainian defenses stretched thin. Russian troops are making headway in eastern regions of Kharkiv and along the borders of Lugansk region. Notable advances have been observed in areas such as Pishny and Novodoy, and several key locations around Kupiansk and Sevastopol. Significance of the P-79 highway. The P-79 highway remains a critical strategic asset. Control of this route is essential for both the Kupiansk. Let's see if I can find it on here. Right here. That's what I'm talking about. This area right in here, right? So it serves as a crucial supply line and a potential springboard for future operations. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine continues to see dynamic changes, true, particularly with Russian forces maintaining pressure on multiple fronts while adapting their tactics. The strategic importance of the P-79 highway highlights the broader implications of territorial control in the region. As both sides prepare for further escalation, the situation remains fluid and highly unpredictable. All right. So as we move on, so we talked about Bolivia yesterday. So they arrested the general, right? So the general's been arrested. So in Bolivia, a significant political drama unfolded as General Juan Jose Z, head of the armed forces, was arrested after mobilizing troops and tanks outside the presidential palace, allegedly attempting to restructure democracy. This incident was swiftly labeled a coup attempt by President Louis Aker, leading to General Z's dismissal and arrest on charges of terrorism and armed rebellion. My takeaways: mobilization of forces. So General Z rallied military forces, including tanks, and he went outside the presidential palace, claiming to restructure democracy. This proactive move led to a standoff. Arrests and charges. The general was arrested by Interior Secretary Johnny Aguilera. While speaking to reporters, he faced serious charges, including terrorism and armed rebellion. President Aker's response. President Aker denounced the actions as a coup attempt, emphasizing the need to respect democracy. He quickly dismissed General Z and appointed a new military command. General Z claimed, so General Z has claimed he acted on Aker's orders to boost popularity, a statement that was refuted by the president. This incident highlights internal political tensions, especially given General Z's controversial remarks about arresting former President Evo Morales if he attempted another presidential run. Interesting, huh? The event underscores the division within Bolivia's ruling party. The Movement for Socialism, MAS, split between supporters of Aker and Morales. This internal conflict is intensifying as the 2025 elections approach. International reactions. Leaders across Latin America, including Chile, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil, call for democracy to be upheld. The UN and the US expressed concern and are monitoring the situation closely. Public and media response. Following the military's withdrawal, President Aker addressed his supporters from the presidential palace, reaffirming the nation's commitment to democracy amidst rumors and political turbulence. The incident in Bolivia highlights deep-seated political divisions and the fragility and how fragile its democratic institutions are. General Z, mobilization of military forces, and subsequent arrest on severe charges point to significant tensions between different factions within the government and military. President Aker's swift dismissal of General Z and international calls for democratic stability reflect the critical nature of maintaining constitutional order in the face of potential coups. The situation remains pivotal Bolivia's political landscape with broader regional stability and governance implications. That is my objective summary, right? I find it kind of fishy what happened to this general, right? You just have to dig a little bit.
Aquí está, al general su vida.
Just kind of watch the body language, right?
General, es un sí, muy bien. ¿Cuáles son las palabras?
No se acerquen ustedes.
Pedro,
No se acerquen ustedes.
Pedro, el general está aquí.
¡Golpista!
Pedro, el general está aquí. Pedro, aquí está el general.
General, por favor, ¿qué puede decir? Yo voy a hablar. Vamos a dejar que hable. Vamos a hablar con detalles.
Adelante, general, por favor.
El día domingo, en el colegio La Salle, me reuní con el presidente. Y el presidente me dijo que la situación... El presidente me dijo que la situación está muy jodida. Esta semana va a ser crítica. Esta semana. Entonces es necesario preparar algo para levantar mi popularidad.
Trae la camioneta.
No hay necesidad, yo me voy.
usted va conmigo.
Por eso he venido.
Viene, general, por favor.
Entonces me dice, y le pregunto, ¿sacamos los blindados? Saca. Entonces el lunes, no, el domingo, en la noche, ya los blindados empiezan a bajar. 6 cascabeles y 6 Urutus. Más 14 Z del regimiento de al aire. ¿Ya?
Entonces,
por favor, autogolpe. Es un autogolpe, general. Vamos. Despeje ahí, despeje.
¡El pueblo está dicho! ¡A los militares ¿No me van a hacer caso? ¡No está solo, presidente!
All right. So as we move on, so this is our last thing before we close out, right? So Israel Defense Minister threatens Lebanon with return to the Stone Age if war breaks out with Hezbollah. The destruction will be very great. So in recent statements, Israel Defense Minister issued a stark warning regarding potential conflict with Hezbollah, indicating that any war would result in massive destruction, effectively sending Lebanon back to the Stone Age. He also emphasized Israel's military capability to cause extensive damage, but also stressed the preference for a diplomatic resolution to the ongoing crisis on the Israeli-Lebanese border. Since the outbreak of the war between Israel and Hamas on October 7th, there have been almost daily clashes between Israeli army and Hezbollah, which supports Hamas. During his visit to Washington, Israeli Defense Minister discussed various proposals for the governance of Gaza's post-war with American officials, acknowledging that the process would be lengthy and complex. My key points. Severe warning. Israel Defense Minister warned that a war with Hezbollah would lead to severe destruction of Lebanon. Preference for diplomacy. He also indicated that the Israeli government prefers a diplomatic solution to the broader crisis, despite the harsh rhetoric. Ongoing hostilities. The conflict has seen daily hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah since the war with Hamas began. Post-war Gaza governance. Discussions in Washington included proposals for governing Gaza after the war. And the Israeli defense minister noting the complicity and duration of this process. His remarks underscore the high stakes and potential for significant escalation in the region while reflecting a desire to explore diplomatic avenues to prevent further conflict. And that's where we'll end this, right? You guys, let me know what you think, right? Put together pretty good video, you know? There's a lot to cover. I think we did cover a lot this evening, right? was kind of a slow news day at first. So I was waiting for everything to kind of develop, and it kind of did. So I went ahead and covered everything at once, like all the main issues, all the main international issues I covered, right? So I hope you all have a blessed day. I hope you enjoyed these videos, right? I'll get better as I go on. Please like and subscribe if you want to. Please share the video. So thank you all again. I enjoy doing this for all of you. It's something that I enjoy. So I have a passion to do this, just like teaching the Bible. I love doing this. So thank you all again for following. I love you all so much. I'm out.